In one of my previous talks, I mentioned the first time I met my mother, my adopted mother, and she was a brown skinned woman, just the most gorgeous woman I ever saw in my life. And I didn't uh, go on beyond that. My father, Bill Kennedy, was from New Hampshire, and he was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, liberal. He was a journalist, had 9 small town newspapers for a long time before he was appointed postmaster by Senator Ralph Yarborough. And my mother was raised, her father was Japanese that had immigrated from Japan and worked his way down the west coast and ended up in the valley. There's a consortium of Japanese families down there that are farmers. And his wife was from Mexico. So my grandmother was from Mexico. And I remember the first time they took us down to meet them, you know, but my grandfather didn't speak squat for English. And my grandmother, you know, we're talking in the valley around San Benito. And she didn't speak a lot of English either, but boy, she just loved us. She grabbed us and hugged us and oohed and awed, and it was great. My grandfather, he'd walk out with a glass of milk and he'd say, "Milk," and stick it out to me, and he scared the hell out of me. But my father, uh, my mother was a graduate of Mary Hardin Baylor, and they're a very conservative group. And she was a school teacher in Woodsboro. And my dad, he was just completely enamored with her. You know, if you saw pictures of her in the day, she was exotic and just downright drop dead gorgeous. And my dad started courting her, and I said, "Why did she choose you?" He said, "Because everybody else was too scared to ask her out." You know, and we're talking they got married in the early '50s, you know, and you know, of course, it was a mixed race marriage and everything, but I never had anyone my entire time I lived in Woodsboro, Texas, a little old southern redneck little town, you have farmers and ranchers and oil field workers and everything. I never had one racist thing said to me, ever. Never. Not one time. About the only racist thing I heard out of any of my relatives down in the valley, I had a uncle Mutsu Kawamura, and he was in the 442nd Combat Regiment team in World War II. That was a very highly decorated Japanese American outfit, and he got a Silver Star. And my other uncle, Toyo Kawamoto, was also in the 442nd. But Uncle Mutt, he told me one time, because I told him, I said, "But man, a Silver Star, you know," and I said, "That's fancy." He said, "Well," he said, "there's one thing I learned." He said, "Never trust white people." And gave me a knuckle rub on my head. But it was a very interesting thing. One time, my wife and I went to Kerrville because they were going to have a family reunion up there at the big park. And I told my wife, I said, "Where did they say where they were having it in the park?" She said, "Just drive around till it looks like a UN meeting." And by God, that's what we did, and that's what it looked like. Because I have one aunt that was from she's Polynesian from Hawaii, and we have a very I guess the point is there's not a racist bone in my body. I'd have to be against some of my relatives, but it was a very culturally rich uh, upbringing, and I could sing "Jesus Loved Me" in Japanese. But anyway, I wanted to clarify when I said a brown skinned woman, but she was just I cannot describe how beautiful she was and how lucky my father, who was a Roman Catholic, drank his butt off to marry her. He switched religion from Roman Catholic to Southern Baptist and quit drinking. That'll tell you the power she had over him. But he truly loved her, and she loved him. And after they adopted all 5 of us, she ended up having her own kid, Kevin. Whoa. But so they raised 6 children, and then adopted another boy later on in life. So they raised a total of 7 children.
And all 3 to adults.
Yeah, they adopted six and had one naturally. They really really great people. My dad was wrong all the time. It was totally left wing Democrat, and I'm not quite that way. And we've had some really interesting discussions. My mother wouldn't talk politics. She said, "I don't do that." But anyway, I just wanted to add that.